AI is becoming a bigger part of our lives, but experts are sounding the alarm about how it's making young Canadians easy targets for scams. We sat down with Robert Falzon, head of engineering at Checkpoint Software Technologies, to discuss how AI changes the way scammers target Gen Z compared to traditional online fraud methods.
There's a lot to that actual question that might seem less complicated than it actually is. AI is targeting every aspect of our digital landscape right now today. So everything from media manipulation to fraudulent creations of email. If you probably remember, not too long ago, we used to get fraudulent emails in our inbox, and they might do something silly like spell Amazon wrong, or the logo doesn't look anything like the company, and we could tell right away that this was a fake. The fact is that now, I like to comment that hackers are getting much better at spelling and grammar. They're not. They're just using these tools to create flawless examples of letters to people that that are fooling folks, even folks who have some savvy in this area, who are expecting to be attacked, are still falling victim to some of these, and it's because of the level of sophistication that we're seeing. Now, when you couple that with the fact that this particular generation of people, Gen Z, they grew up in this digital era. They are far more likely to be fast clickers. They'll see something and immediately feel that, because they grew up in this environment, that they're very comfortable with technology. They're very comfortable in getting their information from social media, they're getting their news from social media. That this medium for them isn't something to be suspicious of. As a result of that, they find themselves often more vulnerable to these types of attacks, and again, the level of sophistication that we're seeing with.
We also discussed the most common vulnerabilities in Gen Z's online habits that scammers are exploiting.
There's a number of things there too. For example, reuse of passwords. Just because you grew up in the space, we have this mindset of being instant gratification, right? So I don't want to have to type in a long and difficult password. So I'll just create a really good password that I'm going to use all over the place. When you have this much of a digital footprint, especially Gen Z, who are doing most of their activities online, from their shopping to their education to their work, the fact is that this creates a significant problem with things like credential stuffing. So, in the absolute likelihood that one of those credentials is stolen, if that credential happens to be the same credential for a multitude of other services, hackers are using that credential to then turn around and use tools like artificial intelligence and machine learning to automate the process of logging into dozens and dozens of other services using those same stolen credentials in an attempt to broaden the attack. So they just find themselves more vulnerable, basically because of their footprint is much greater.
We also talked about what AI powered defenses could look like in practice and how soon they could be implemented.
They're being used today. So our company has invested a great deal in artificial intelligence and machine learning technology for cybersecurity safety. We use these tools in conjunction, obviously, with training and education, and understanding that cybersecurity is a ever evolving process that we all have to continue to go through. But the fact is that these tools are available today. They're being used by hackers. Certainly, we see some of them in the case of nation state attacks. We've seen them from organized crime. So as a result of that, companies like ours have had to invest heavily in the same technologies. Users and individuals have to do the same thing. If you take a look at your something like a mobile phone, if I had your mobile phone in my hands for 5 minutes, I could tell so much about you that there'd be very few questions I would have to ask you before I knew everything I needed to know about you. And that is just by the nature of the fact that this is with us all the time. Many folks do not have any protections on their phone, as an example, right? So when we talk about the risk of downloading a malware, even if you're using a phone from, say, Apple or something, where they have a walled garden, the developers that are creating these applications are also susceptible to vulnerability, just like individuals would be. And as a result, we're seeing a situation where people are trusting these online platforms or trusting social media, and they're bringing these things into their environment and not realizing that they don't have the tools or understanding to identify a risk personally. You need to have this advanced technology on your devices in order to help protect yourself from them.
Finally, we touched on how, with legislation and technology catching up, what the single most effective step parents can take today to protect their kids online.
Communication. It's the absolute key, and I know that's, sounds like sort of silly to say something so simple, but the fact is that, Gen Zers, I happen to live with one, so I can tell you firsthand that There's just about nothing I can tell them because they know everything already. So the fact is, don't take that personally. You just have to understand, first of all, that you have to socialize some of this stuff. So to be able to talk to somebody, especially Gen Z, about a challenge relating to security and their personal safety, you need to come at it from an approach that, look, this is what I'm hearing everywhere else. Make sure that they get resources online. So if you can do the research yourself and find places that will help educate them, share that with them so they can go find that information themselves or dig into it themselves. Just simply telling them, as I learned from my own child, you can't just say, hey, you need to do this. He's just going to do the exact opposite.